Old Firm week again. And does it not feel strange saying that? It feels like we have barely had time to breathe since the last clash, and here we are, staring at another massive showdown. This time it is not just about bragging rights or league positioning. This time it is the Scottish Cup, and that changes everything. There is no room for a decent spell here and there. No space for a promising 45 minutes followed by a collapse. It is do or die. One team walks into the semi-final, the other is left picking through the frustration. Rangers simply cannot afford a repeat of what we saw last week. A half of good football will not cut it. A strong start followed by a shaky finish will not cut it. Against any Celtic side, regardless of how strong or weak people believe them to be, you need control, concentration, and character for the full 90 minutes. The last meeting showed flashes of what this Rangers team can be, but it also exposed the cracks that have been creeping in over recent weeks. And at this stage of the season, cracks turn into collapses very quickly if they are not fixed. There has been a lot of noise surrounding the manager. Some supporters are furious, others are urging calm. The truth probably sits somewhere in between. He got it wrong in that game. The tactical changes shifted momentum the wrong way, and Celtic were allowed back into a match that Rangers had opportunities to put beyond them. That is a fair criticism. At this level, in fixtures of this magnitude, the margin for error is razor thin. When you get decisions wrong, they are punished. But there is also a bigger picture to consider. Rangers have a manager who is still carving out his identity as the main man. Yes, he has worked alongside high-level coaches. Yes, he has been part of impressive setups. Experience in elite environments matters. Learning under top-level managers shapes your philosophy, your preparation, your understanding of the modern game. However, being the one in the dugout making the final call is a different challenge entirely. That is where reputations are forged and sometimes bruised. You can see that he is trying to adapt. There have been games where tactical tweaks have changed the flow in Rangers' favor. There have been shape adjustments that unsettled opponents. At times it has clicked. At other times, it has looked disjointed. That inconsistency is what fuels the debate. Rangers is not a club that hands out endless patience. The expectation is immediate impact, silverware, dominance. Anything less invites scrutiny. One of the biggest talking points coming out of the recent performances has been the back line. It is impossible to ignore the pattern. Goals conceded that could have been avoided. Moments where defenders fail to track runs. Situations where space is left unguarded in the most dangerous areas of the pitch. In tight matches, those lapses are fatal. You cannot expect to compete for trophies while gifting opponents clear opportunities. The center-back partnership has come under particular pressure. There was a spell earlier in the campaign when they looked settled, composed, and reliable. Communication seemed sharper, positioning more assured. Yet in the past few matches, uncertainty has crept in. For one of the goals conceded in the last Old Firm meeting, the movement between the lines was not picked up. A forward drifted into the gap between defenders and was allowed a free-sided goal. At this level, that is unforgivable. The penalty incident was another example. It was not simply bad luck. It stemmed from hesitation and a lack of decisive action. When a striker spins away and creates 2 or 3 yards of space inside the box, defenders must react instantly. Anticipation separates good defenders from great ones. The best center-backs read danger before it fully develops. They adjust their body shape, drop into space, cover for a teammate who has been dragged out of position. Rangers have not consistently done that. There have also been situations where the full back pushes high, the opposition counter quickly, and the remaining defenders fail to shuffle across and fill the exposed channel. It is basic defensive awareness. If one player vacates a zone, another must recognize it and slide across. That collective understanding has looked shaky. Too often the line has stayed rigid while attackers exploit the blind side. These are not isolated incidents. They are trends. And when trends develop in the defensive third, they cost you points in cup ties. Rangers are not currently a side that scores freely every single week. They are capable of goals, certainly, but they do not overwhelm opponents with relentless attacking waves. That means the defensive structure has to be solid. 1-0 victories. Grinding out results. That is often what separates champions from challengers. There is also the psychological element. Mentality is a word that gets thrown around constantly, but in Glasgow, it carries weight. Pulling on that blue jersey comes with history and expectation. When the pressure rises, When the stadium is tense and every tackle is roared, you need players who embrace it rather than shrink from it. There have been too many moments in recent seasons where Rangers have faltered just as momentum seemed to be building. Celtic, even in periods where they have not been at their absolute best, have often found a way. Late winners, ugly victories, performances that were far from fluent yet still ended in 3 points or a trophy lift. That edge, that refusal to accept anything less than success, is something Rangers are still trying to fully rediscover. It is not just about tactics on a whiteboard. It is about leadership on the pitch, about individuals demanding more from themselves and from each other. The captaincy dynamic adds another layer to the defensive debate. Trust plays a role in selection. Experience matters, especially in high-intensity derbies. But if form dips and mistakes become frequent, difficult decisions have to be made. Dropping a senior figure is never straightforward. Yet sometimes it sends a message that standards will not slip, regardless of status. There are alternatives waiting for opportunities, players returning from injury, younger options eager to prove themselves. Introducing fresh energy at the back could either stabilize things or add further uncertainty. That is the gamble the manager must weigh. Stick with a partnership that has shown it can perform, hoping they rediscover that earlier rhythm, or make a bold call ahead of one of the biggest fixtures of the season. Sunday will reveal a great deal, not just about who lines up in defense, but about how Rangers respond as a collective. The Scottish Cup demands resilience. It demands concentration from the first whistle to the last. The supporters will play their part, as they always do, but belief on the terraces must be matched by authority on the pitch. If Rangers can tighten up, read danger quicker, and show that ruthless mentality when chances arrive, this Old Firm week could shift from anxiety to opportunity in the space of 90 relentless minutes. There is also a wider conversation to be had about how Rangers approach these massive fixtures from the first whistle. Too often recently, the team has needed a wake-up call before hitting full stride. In cup football, that hesitation can be fatal. You cannot allow the opposition to settle, to grow in confidence, to believe they can dictate the tempo. The opening 20 minutes on Sunday have to be played with authority, aggression, and clarity. Every tackle needs to mean something. Every pass has to carry intent. When you are facing your fiercest rivals for a place in a semi-final, emotion is guaranteed, but emotion without control becomes chaos. Midfield responsibility will be crucial. When the back line has looked vulnerable, part of the issue has been the lack of consistent protection in front of them. Defensive shape is not just about the four at the back. It is about the distances between the lines, about midfielders tracking runners, about communication when players rotate out of position. If Rangers allow gaps to appear between defense and midfield, Celtic will exploit them. They have players who thrive in pockets of space, who can turn quickly and drive at retreating defenders. Closing those pockets before they become problems must be a priority. At the same time, Rangers cannot approach this tie purely with caution. There needs to be bravery in possession. In the previous meeting, there were spells where the ball moved sharply, where the wide areas were utilized well, and the opposition looked stretched. That is the blueprint. Quick switches of play, full-backs overlapping with purpose, forwards making decisive runs across defenders rather than waiting for service to feet. When Rangers have played with tempo and width, they have looked capable of hurting anyone domestically. The challenge is sustaining it, not just producing flashes. Another factor is decision-making in the final third. In high-pressure games, composure often separates victory from regret. There have been moments this season where promising attacks broke down because of rushed choices, shots taken too early, or passes forced when a simpler option was available. In a cup tie that must produce a winner, patience inside the box can be as valuable as urgency outside it. Drawing defenders out of shape, committing them, then delivering the decisive touch. Those are the fine margins that define Old Firm battles. The physical side cannot be ignored either. These matches are relentless. The pace rarely drops, and every duel feels amplified. Fitness levels, especially late in the second half, could be decisive. Rangers have at times faded in matches when the intensity rises. If the team is to see this through, the conditioning must be there to press, to recover, and to maintain concentration deep into stoppage time. One lapse in the dying minutes undoes 90 minutes of graft. Leadership on the park will be under the spotlight. When momentum swings, and it always does in games of this magnitude. Someone has to steady the ship. A commanding voice, a player willing to demand more, to slow things down when necessary, or to inject urgency when the crowd grows restless. Leadership is not just about wearing an armband. It is about setting standards in real time. When a teammate switches off, you call it out. When the line drops too deep, you push it up. Those details often go unnoticed until they are missing. The mental resilience of this squad has been questioned, and the only way to silence that is through action. Talk of mentality means nothing if it is not backed by performances in decisive fixtures. Rangers have an opportunity here to shift the narrative. Knock out your biggest rivals in the Scottish Cup and suddenly belief surges. The pressure does not disappear, but it transforms into momentum. That is how seasons can pivot. Selection will naturally dominate discussion right up until kickoff. If changes are made at center back, it sends a message that no place is guaranteed. If the manager sticks with the same pairing, it signals trust and a belief that recent errors were anomalies rather than indicators. Either choice carries risk. Fresh faces could bring renewed focus, but also disrupt established understanding. Continuity could restore confidence or repeat mistakes. It is a delicate balance. There is also the question of how Rangers handle transitions. In the last encounter, counterattacks proved dangerous at both ends. When Rangers committed bodies forward, they looked threatening, yet when possession was lost, recovery runs were not always sharp enough. The spacing between defenders during those transitions has to improve. If a fullback pushes on, the nearest midfielder must instinctively drop into the vacated space. That kind of synchronization is drilled on the training ground, but it must be executed instinctively under pressure. Set pieces could prove pivotal as well. In tight cup ties, dead ball situations often decide outcomes. Delivery quality, movement in the box, blocking runs to free up a header at the back post. Defensively, organization is paramount. Each player must know his assignment and attack the ball with conviction. There can be no ball watching, no hesitation. One clean contact can swing the entire afternoon. The supporters will demand intensity, and rightly so. Ibrox on a big occasion can be overwhelming for opponents when the team feeds off that energy. But the players must channel that roar intelligently. Charging forward recklessly in search of an early breakthrough could leave space behind. The key is controlled aggression. Press with structure, tackle with timing, and trust the game plan. What makes this tie even more compelling is the sense that Rangers are at a crossroads. Progress in the Scottish Cup would keep silverware firmly in sight and reinforce the belief that this project is moving in the right direction. A defeat would magnify every criticism, every doubt about tactics, recruitment, and mentality. That is the reality of life at this club. Margins are thin, expectations are enormous. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. Whispers around Ibrox have grown louder after word spread that Rangers are believed to have moved swiftly in the market, with talk of an agreement in place for the standout performer from Motherwell, the highly rated Elijah Just. While nothing has been formally laid on the table for supporters, sources close to both camps suggest the deal is being treated as more than idle chatter, with confidence that an announcement-style confirmation is edging closer behind the scenes. The story doing the rounds is that Rangers' recruitment staff have tracked Just for some time, impressed by his composure under pressure, his willingness to demand the ball, and a versatility that fits neatly into the kind of high-tempo football expected at Ibrox. Insiders hint that conversations accelerated quietly, avoiding the noise that often follows a move of this profile, especially when it involves prizing away a club's key man from within the league. The feeling is that Rangers see Just not merely as cover or a squad option, but as a player capable of reshaping the balance of the midfield over the long haul. From the Motherwell end, there is a sense of reluctant acceptance woven into the speculation. Those close to Fir Park acknowledge that keeping hold of a player attracting this level of interest is never straightforward, particularly when a Glasgow giant comes calling with ambition and resources. The rumor mill suggests negotiations have focused less on whether the move will happen and more on the finer details that allow all parties to save face and plan ahead. Among the Rangers' support, the chatter is already turning hopeful. just as being painted as a signing that blends immediate impact with resale potential, a footballer whose development curve still points sharply upward. If the whispers prove accurate, this could be one of those deals spoken about long before the paperwork is revealed, a transfer shaped in shadows, now edging into the light, with anticipation building across the blue half of the city. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.